So, you're just gonna be talking about your book series for this whole video. I mean, I'm also gonna be talking about RWBY a bit, but yeah, this will be about the first arc of my book. I'm out. Have fun doing this without me. Short disclaimer, this video will contain in-depth spoilers for volumes 1 through 9 of RWBY, as well as the first 4 books of my 27-book anthology. If you want to read my books for yourself, they can be read for free on wattpad.com/MegumiMary6. Link is in the description below. Hello, Chimera crew! I am MegumiMary, the transgender Chimera girl with a heart of gold and love for all things nerdy. And Nightmary is sitting this one out because she doesn't know enough about my book series to discuss the topic. As all memories and information about my book series is something only I know in our system. Well, unless we co-front, but we're not doing that today, so it's just me. So, this will be, for all intents and purposes, my first ever storytime video. Basically, I'm just telling a story. That's it. No deep critical analysis, theory crafting, or funny reviews. Just a fun anecdotal story. So sit back and relax as I tell the story of how I basically wrote the ending of RWBY Volume 8 before it even came out. So if you follow me on social media, for a while now, I have been hyping up my upcoming Penny Lives RWBY theory, where I will outline how Penny will be returning in a future volume of RWBY. It wasn't until very recently, during a revision of the script, that I came to a shocking conclusion. I basically wrote the ending of Volume 8 before it aired. Now, this is not me making any claims of plagiarism at all. This is just a fun anecdote of great minds think alike. I wanted to share this story for a few reasons. 1, it will add credibility to my eventual Penny Lives theory. 2, it will help anyone who has ever felt discouraged by having one of their great ideas quote-unquote pre-stolen by other stories. And finally, I just wanted to brag about these similarities a bit. So, RWBY Volume 8 premiered on November 7th, 2020. With the final episode airing on the 27th of March, 2021. Meanwhile, my book, Fall of Atlantis, was being posted on Wattpad from September 2nd, 2019 to April 6th, 2020. I would also like to add that the outline for this book was made as early as when I was in my senior year of high school, which would be 2006 to 2007, since I am class of 07. So, while the actual ending varied from the original conception to the final product posted between September 2019 and April 2020, there were a few aspects that were there from the beginning. The journey through the seasons series that was then later adapted into the seasons arc when I put all my book series ideas into a single cohesive timeline anthology was made of 4 books total. The book title was the season, followed by the word of, and then something thematic to that particular book. I figured out quickly that I wanted book 1 to be the introduction, so Spring of Discovery. Book 2 was where things would ramp up, so Summer of Conflict. And then, because at the time I was a sucker for Chosen One prophecies, the 4th book would be Winter of Destiny. It was the 3rd book where I decided to have some fun. Instead of going with the more elegant sounding autumn, I went with the more casual fall term for the season because I wanted to play around with a famous legend, the Fall of Atlantis. So, book 3 was titled Fall of Atlantis. So, basically, before I even had a basic outline or characters or anything, all I knew is that I wanted the 3rd book to revolve around Atlantis being sunk into the ocean. But I also wanted to put a unique twist on it. See, in most legends and stories I had heard at the time, it was hubris or tragedy that forced Atlantis to be sunk. But I decided early on that in my story, the big plot twist would be that they would instead sink the city of Atlantis in order to either save the people or to keep the enemy from whatever secrets the city held. The final version was kind of like this, but I will get into this shortly. Again, I need to stress that this was the idea before I even knew what anything else about the story would be like. All I knew at the time was that the third book had to revolve around sinking Atlantis to protect it from the villains. All this was back in late 2006, early 2007. Jump forward to when I came up with the idea of throwing everything together on a shared timeline. I knew exactly how I wanted to cap off this 27-book anthology. The problem was I needed a rigid set of rules in place, otherwise it would come across as cheap. I also needed to introduce the concept of it early on so it wouldn't shock the reader later on, or it would seem like it would come out of nowhere. So when I revisited Fall of Atlantis to fit it into the Celestia Chronicles timeline, there was now a new event happening at the end of the book. So, here's how the event plays out. In the season's arc, the main character, Jade, has to keep the villain, Zog, from collecting 4 crystals that are supposed to restore elemental balance after the elemental guardians were sealed away a millennium earlier. Each one is tied to one of 4 elements and causes an elemental-related disaster when removed. The villain actually got the wind crystal before the events of the story even took place, and it caused the Dragon City to fall from the sky a few years prior to the story beginning. The Earth Crystal also caused a temple to sink beneath the desert, and the Fire Crystal caused a volcano to erupt, burying the surrounding area in lava. The last one is the Water Crystal, which keeps the city of Atlantis afloat. Now, this one actually has a protective barrier on it that only drops 4 days a year to recharge the barrier from sunrise to sunset. And with the exception of those time frames, no one can get to it. Those days in question being the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes. So the villain is coming with an army and the heroes can't hope to fend him off for the entire day, so they make a drastic decision. They decide to remove the crystal themselves to flee the city. See, there is an emergency escape tunnel that will only open once the crystal is removed that leads to the mainland, so in order to escape the army and get all the civilians to safety, they decide it is what is best. However, the night before, the main character's mother notices something is off while attending one last meeting with all the important players for this game plan. Arda is one of the characters who can sense someone's energy and be able to read it. But she notices her daughter's energy is in 2 places at once. So she leaves the room and goes to where she senses this other source of her daughter's energy, to find another version of her daughter who appears to be older. Yeah, that's right. Time travel. I know it is a bit of a risky cliche, but I like it, and like I said, I have very strict rules, and they are laid out in this single interaction in Book 3, that only instances where something was always meant to happen can be done with time travel. Basically, I operate on this closed loop principle. As long as there are no changes to the timeline, everything is above board. So this same scene, word for word when it comes to character dialogue, will appear later on in the series. So the next morning, they put their plan into action. But suddenly Jade, the main character, who was supposed to remove the crystal to keep it from the villains, she goes missing. The villains get their hands on this crystal, and then in the process, a beloved character is killed off by someone who seemed like they were on the verge of having a redemption arc of sorts, despite being one of the main villains. As everyone else escapes, they are about to be killed by the tunnel being flooded with a massive wave, when Jade suddenly appears and seems to have mastered her brand new power of water, which was only awakened less than an hour ago. Her mother, however, takes note of the fact that while Jade has no memory of where she went, Jade's energy has aged by a whole 2 weeks. Then, in the start of the next book, Jade and her mother devise a plan to finish off the villain that killed their friend, that revolves around resurrecting their dead friend. So, to recap, in my book, I have the characters sink a city to protect a magical MacGuffin, while also creating an escape route from the enemy. Their plan fails, and the enemy, who was teased to possibly be redeemed, only to double down, gets the MacGuffin while also killing a character. Then the main character is displaced in time and space, and when they return, they have a renewed sense of self. Sound familiar? Now, the final part about resurrecting their friend is one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video, as it will play into my RWBY theory video, Penny Lives, where I theorize we will get one final Penny res, and she will be instrumental in aiding Jean, Ren, and Nora in finally bringing down Cinder in the final battle as the new Team Juniper. So, to anyone who has ever had a great idea and felt discouraged after realizing it has already been done, I say, do it anyway. Like I said, I planned out my story years before RWBY even aired, and it was published on Wattpad before the volume started to air. I also had a storyline in one of my books centered around an asexual, aromantic character needing the power of love to unlock his inhibited power, but felt discouraged because Frozen beat me to the punch with the twist of true love doesn't have to be romantic. Now, this next part actually contains light spoilers for Legend of Korra, as I discuss the newly announced Avatar 7 Haven series. Jump to the time code below to skip past this section. In fact, while working on this script, I had to go back to add this part in just before recording because the new Avatar 7 Haven series is going to be dealing with twin earthbender avatars, something I myself called years ago in my own Avatar fanfic, The Legend of Jasmine. The idea was that Vaatu was reborn inside Rava after harmonic convergence, so when Korra died, the next Avatar would be twins, one with Rava, one with Vaatu. Until they turned 16, one was an earthbending prodigy who everyone assumed would be the next Avatar, while the other seemingly had no bending ability at all until revealed to be the Avatar. In my story, the Red Avatar, being the one who was the host for Vaatu, would have faced an uphill battle in being accepted as an Avatar between her entitled attitude growing up and the nature of her origins of being the Avatar. She would eventually find a perfect balance in herself, recognizing that being a host for Vaatu doesn't make her an embodiment of pure evil, any more than her twin sister being a host for Rava makes her an embodiment of pure good. Both girls are capable of great good and great evil, and only together can the two of them do something that no Avatar before them can ever actually accomplish: find true balance between human and spirit worlds. I don't know if you noticed, but me and Mary here kind of like the whole motif of dark and light forces working together to create a balanced ecosystem. Everything Vaatu and Rava are supposed to be doing instead of fighting against each other. I identify as a dark twin of her for a few reasons, and that is one of them. Also, since we are not dedicating an entire video to something we can summarize in one sentence that we can squeeze in here, we see all these things about how Korra supposedly ended the world. So me and Mary are just going to call it now. Korra didn't end the world. She saved it. Kuvira basically invented spirit nuke technology. And once that kind of technology has been invented, someone else will figure out how to recreate it. We think Korra managed to save a few pockets of humanity before dying. But because a lot of information about what was happened was lost or destroyed, everyone thinks it was all Korra's fault. Anyway, I've said my piece. I'm gone for the rest of the video. Bye! Anyway, back on topic. To wrap all this up, the first arc of my series uses the most cliche trope ever. The Chosen One trope. But I use it in my own ways. The first hero, Jade, is told that she will die if she tries to kill the villain, while also being told that she is the only one who has the power to kill the villain. Then, to add on to it, we have the whole reason I toyed with the villain's redemption in the first place. He learned that he had free will. His arc started because he thought his destiny was preordained, that the prophecy said he was evil, so he had no choice but to follow that. And now that the illusion has been shattered, he begins to question if he even wants to follow this path anymore. I turn a one-note character into a three-dimensional character using one of the most cliched tropes ever. Basically, what I'm trying to say is never let what has or has not been done stifle your creativity. All I know is that when I read my books now, I can smile knowing that I wrote something on par with what is considered to be one of RWBY's best volumes. Anyway, I have been MegumiMary. Don't stop being pure aces and have a super wonderful day. Me and Mary just want to give a special shout out to everyone who has made fan art of us. You guys are the real ones. Don't stop being wicked. Just don't stop being awesome. Have a super wonderful day, all of you. Thank you all so much. We have dedicated a special part of our website, MegumiMary.com/fanart, just for you. Here is their artwork. If you want to check it out for yourself, go to the website. Again, thank you so much for everything. Have a wicked day. That's it for today's video, Chimera Crew. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a Patreon and a reaction channel if you want to check those out. You can scan this QR code here to be taken to my personal website, MegumiMary.com/links, to find links to all my projects across the internet. As always, I appreciate any and all support you give me. I have been MegumiMary. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't stop being awesome. Cue the outro. Being accepted as an avatar between her entitled